I love it when you've made something you feel really proud of, teams worked really hard on, and you know you've got something special and you're waiting to see how it goes down. I'm Sanjay Singhal and I'm founder and CEO of Voltage Television. We've been going for about 9 years and we've built our company up from scratch. We're now in a position where we're making some big returning shows for BBC and ITV and Channel 4 and have had our first success in getting premium sort of factual series away with some of the streamers as well. I think one of the programs I'm most proud of is a program I made just before we started Voltage. It set the tone and the ambition for the kind of things I think we like to do. It's a program called The Plane Crash. In fact, there's a sort of door from the program right behind me, and we did the first ever crash test of a passenger plane, a Boeing 737, that we crashed for Channel 4 and Discovery into the Mexican desert as the world's first crash test of a plane, a giant science experiment, one of the most expensive and high-risk programs that I think have been made to date, and really pushed the boundaries in every single way. And so that was the program that I sort of feel, I feel that's like the pinnacle for me in terms of what we'd achieved, and I think set a standard for what I wanted to achieve at Voltage. I got into television slightly accidentally. I actually started with a law degree, aspiration to get into law, and then realised very quickly that it was not what I thought it was going to be, and slightly more tedious, although probably very well paid. Ended up taking a course in journalism, which opened some doors, and I ended up getting lucky enough to get onto a traineeship at the BBC. And that traineeship was in news, and I started in news, and that was back in about 30 years ago. And then after about 10 years in news, I sort of finally made a transition and moved over towards documentaries and longer form programmes. I think if I try and describe the industry to someone who didn't know it, I'd say it is utterly spontaneous and thrilling, but also can be deeply frustrating at the same time. What I love about the industry is it starts with nothing. It starts with literally cliched blank sheet of paper, and you're trying to, at your very best, come up with an idea that in a certain period of time, maybe months, maybe a couple of years later, will be on screen. And it started with nothing, just 2 people or 3 people in a room talking about an idea. So I think that is its very best, right? Ultimate, exceptional creativity that's then matched with execution at the highest level to deliver extraordinary results. I think what comes with that is pressure, and what comes with that is a kind of unpredictability for people, and that unpredictability I quite like. But if you're a sort of freelancer and you don't know where your next job's coming from, and job security and whatever, it can also become quite destabilizing. So I think it's an unpredictable, spontaneous, wild ride, which I love, but at the same time I recognize that it can create difficulties for people who crave a bit more stability and long-term settlement.
Okay, so what do you think the next 30 years of the industry looks like?
Look, I think in 30 years' time, I love this industry. I hope I'm not past it in 30 years' time. So I hope I'm going to be just sitting and watching it and enjoying it and watching all the brilliant things that the new generation of talent are going to take and stretch to be. I'm finding it hard to even predict what the industry is going to look like in 6 months' time. When I started in TV, it was a completely different place. That was 30 years ago. I think it was like 4 or 5 channels or something. The choice was very limited. The creativity, the ambition was more restrictive. If you look at what just happened in 30 years, it's sort of completely unpredictable, right? In terms of the breadth, the scale, the volume of outlets, the way in which programs are made, the democratization of media. I can only imagine those things are going to increase. I do think the one thing that will happen in the short term, though, is I feel that the sort of big players are really placing big bets, the streamers and the big networks, and everyone wants projects of scale. And therefore, I think the industry at the moment is harder to be in if you're making small scale and mid scale programs. Everyone wants something that's going to land, that's going to be big. I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that no problem is too big. As long as you approach it in the right way. Because it's a great thing. You're putting television on and maybe millions of people are going to watch it and they're all going to comment on it, and to get that sort of response, know your programs are being discussed and talked about and in this sort of ether, I find really intoxicating. If we can play a part in that, I feel very proud of that.